Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, um, depending on where you are joining from. Um, Thanks for joining this webinar. Signify, as you know, is a world leader in lighting, and we primarily operates in three business units. One is the light source, which are the lamps or the tubes. Another is luminaires, the road lights, the office downlights, troffers, and so on. And a third, with the advent of LEDs, we have ventured into the systems and services activity, as you all know. We are number one connected lighting company. We are also number one in our LED lamps business, as well as in our conventional business. In 2021, our business had been 6.8 billion euros, and 75% of this business was in professional segment. Our 2022 results are yet to be out. Globally, we have 29,000 plus employees in 70 countries, and we are also number one in the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. Um, as a mission, we know that the population is growing and there is a lot of urbanization. So we know that there is great demand for lighting. We also know that there is a challenge in resources availability. So more and more energy efficient lighting would be required. And then digitization is the way to go in today's world. And that is where we are focusing a lot on connected lighting. Um, our major areas where we operate is the segments where we operate is government, wherein reducing energy and the carbon footprint for more sustainable environment is the key which all governments are looking at. We are also working with cities to help them become more safe and livable and of course sustainable. Office and industry is another segment where we are helping to optimize the building and business operations. We are helping to improve the workers' productivity and well-being, and also involved in improving the efficiency and safety of these operations. Sports and stadia is another segment where we operate, and this is where we are helping to enhance the overall fan experience as well as making the stadium work harder. And those you would have seen even in the recent FIFA World Cups, the way the stadiums were lit up and how the fans enjoy those kind of lighting also. And in the retail and hospitality segment, we are helping the retailers and hoteliers to better serve their customers, improve the shopping experience, improve the overall staying and living experience in the hotel. So that's in nutshell what we as Signify do. Um, a quick introduction about myself and the speakers today. I am Nilesh. I have been working with Philips and Signify for over 28 years now, have handled various roles in product innovation, product management, product marketing, and new business development. I've been associated with color kinetics for more than 12 years now. I started CK activity in India and then moved to Singapore to re-establish CK in emerging markets of South Asia, ASEAN, Pacific, Japan, Middle East, Turkey, and Africa. I was involved in building the entire ecosystem of influencers, partners, and system integrators, which helped to grow our business there. And I was involved in concept to commissioning of many iconic projects in the region. And welcome, Scott, to this webinar today. Scott specializes in programming and commissioning large systems, custom control interfaces, and architectural visualization and integration. He has recently started his own company, Creative Control Light and Media, where he will take on both lighting design, control, and integration project. as well as he wants to return back to his roots in film and video production and motion graphics. And the third speaker who we have today is Brian Ellsworth. Brian is with Foreman and Associates in California for last 9 years. Previously, he worked in electrical distribution industry for 25 years. His passion for lighting was developed while working as a light fixture consultant for set decorators and art departments in major motion pictures and television industry in Los Angeles in 1990 and early 2000. This introduced him to a variety of lighting companies and fixture types. His work with Foreman has led to industry relationships with wide variety of creative people in lighting design, architecture, universities, and major studios in Hollywood. He considers it a privilege to work on projects that are inspirational and lead to community engagement with landmark installations. So welcome Brian also to this webinar. And with this brief introduction, I hand it over to Brian for taking us further into this webinar.
Thank you, Nilesh, and welcome everybody. I'd like to thank Yap and the Signify Lighting Academy for inviting us today to do this webinar, and hope everybody is doing well around the globe. A couple of topics we're going to cover today. First, the well-planned mock-up, words not needed, and then I'll cover that, and then Scott Cain is going to cover the importance of a talented programmer on iconic installations. So here's the 4 learning objectives that we're going to try and cover today. I'm going to cover the first 2, how to identify landmark locations for potential lighting, and second, planning an effective mock-up. Scott will be covering the checklist before commissioning and programming event, and turning your programmer loose and opening eyes. The first step is identifying potential landmark locations for lighting upgrades. We live in an age where with LEDs, the possibility of putting color on iconic locations is possible, and you really can do some amazing things. We work a lot with the city of Los Angeles here in Southern California, and have done their city hall. We've done 2nd Street Tunnel. We recently completed the 6th Street Viaduct. So you want to look for historical locations. I do a lot of work with universities. So universities normally have historical iconic locations that can be lit. Bridges and tunnels are excellent candidates for lighting upgrades. And really any public gathering spaces is a great opportunity. So first, planning an effective mock-up. You want to be able to communicate to a client what the lighting is going to do to a location. So there's a couple of things that you need to look at when you're planning an effective mock-up. First, what type of fixtures are needed? Second, how many fixtures are needed to do an effective mock-up? Third, the colors you're going to select for that mock-up. And lastly, what accessories will be needed for the mock-up. During our presentation today, I'm going to talk about a case study on a current project at USC here in Los Angeles, the Joseph Medicine Crow building, which is one of their iconic buildings on campus. In particular, the tower that you see is one that we identified as a great candidate to be lit. So the first thing you want to do is gather intelligence on the existing lighting system. So there's a couple ways to do this. I like to do a site visit just to get a feel for the location, how it's currently being lit, potential ways that we could relight it. And I'll normally ask for as-built drawings. If the customer has those are very helpful. I'll take site pictures. And there's a couple of things you're trying to gather here is the throw distances from where your fixtures are going to be located to the landmark location that you're lighting, and any potential issues on trees or obstacles to lighting the location. You want to take note of that also. How many fixtures are needed? Scale is necessary. It's very important that when you do a mock-up, you're doing it to an extent that you are communicating to the client how the location is going to be lit after the installation is done. And there are some limitations, obviously, on how many fixtures you can bring to a mock-up, but it's very critical that you bring enough that you communicate the idea that you're trying to communicate. What colors to use at mock-up? At USC, obviously, we wanted to show them the school colors. You want to show them any particular cause that might be important to the university. One thing that was happening during the mock-up phase at USC was an environmental awareness week there. So they were very keen on putting green up on the structure. One thing that I've learned over the years that's very important is to bring a full accessory of lenses to a mock-up, because you never know what might be needed. And it's very important to have everything there, so during the mock-up, you can show your client the premium lighting on the structure. One thing that is very important in my job at Foreman and Associates is to stay current on new fixture technology. It's constantly evolving, and there's issues. There can be issues on a particular project that new lighting fixtures that are in the market can solve. And at this USC project, the one challenge that we had was the ball that you see on top of the tower was previously lit by 400-watt high pressure sodium fixtures, which were difficult, if not impossible, to access. So we needed to take a look at another option of lighting that ball up. And in this instance, there's a new light fixture from Color Kinetics, the Reach Elite High Punch, that was able to solve that issue by throwing light with a very focused beam up to that ball. And the client was really impressed when we lit it up at the mock-up to show them what that was going to look like. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Nilesh. We're going to dive a little bit into that particular fixture and how it was able to solve this issue at the USC project. So Nilesh, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So yes, this Reach Elite High Punch is the product which they used for this project. Now, this is a product which enables applications where light is required to be thrown at longer distance with precise aiming and yet having high lumens to get the required punch, right? So we have been seeing that the light trespass and light glow are major concerns highlighted by city authorities nowadays. Also, the buildings and structures are getting more and more taller. They are having different and unique shapes and sizes and angles. And fixture placements and delivering required light or lumens is a challenge. So as you can see it in the picture here, uh, here's a bridge which has a tilted structure, right? Now this would require a specific luminaire, to light up this kind of structure with the brightness required there. Um, another the thing is because ultimately the delivered light matters, and precision optics are required to utilize the light in the best possible way. So if you look at the example here in the picture, this is an arch of a bridge which Brian just mentioned. Now Such arch or illuminating such an arch would require light to be uniform across the arch, right? So again, you need to have some specific optics in your luminaire, which will help you to do this. The other trend what we see nowadays is grazing high structures is a new trend. Now this requires near field mixing, and narrow precise beams are required to deliver the light efficiently. So as you see in this example, for a high-rise building being grazed precisely without any spills into adjacent areas. Now, again, this would require some precision optics for you guys, right? And then when it comes to long throws, as what Brian was just mentioning, uh, and this happens mainly because of site conditions wherein the luminaire location needs to be far away. Now that needs very narrow beam. Here you see an example of Niagara Falls, wherein the light fixtures are placed between 1,000 to 2,000 feet away from the waterfalls, and yet the requirement was to illuminate them very brightly. Um, While we do all this, we need to focus on quality of light also. We need precision optics, we need less diffusion, higher application efficiency, and obviously, there should not be lot of wasted light. The examples what you see here is of a stadium from Japan. I was personally involved in this stadium, wherein you see the different the structure being lit up with different colors. Obviously, there are different luminaires aimed at each of it and programmed that way. You also see some more pictures here. We have this picture from mock-up of the City Hall, which Brian just mentioned. And of course, there is this world's most photographed building, the Empire State Building, which uses our reach luminaires out here. Uh, it was because of these reasons that we built this Reach Elite high punch product, which has very narrow beam and which can put light in the place and in the area where it is precisely required, the ball, as Brian said. Now, with this background, I hand it over back to Brian to take us through this presentation further. Let me do that.
Thank you, Nilesh.
Yes, Brian, over to you.
Thank you. And this picture is at USC the night of the mock-up. Before we started the webinar, Scott and I were chatting about the anticipation. Oftentimes on these projects, it will be sometimes years building up to the mock-up, talking about design, talking about layout. So there's a great sense of anticipation when you actually reach the night of the mock-up, and that's when the magic happens. So here's some pictures from the results of the mock-up. A couple comments from the client. They were quite struck about the very even nature of the light on the tower, and also how we were able to reach the ball, as we discussed previously, at the top of the tower. Timing wise, this worked out really well because it was homecoming weekend. So a lot of people were able to see the mock-up while it was up, including all the stakeholders in the project at USC, which was very, very beneficial. So what I'd like to show you now is a series of before and after pictures of projects I've worked on, mock-up and then after installation. This is the water tower at Warner Brothers Studio in Burbank. The water towers have a very unique history here in LA at the studios. At one point in time, they were actually working water towers for fire suppression on the lots. So this is the mock-up at Warner Brothers. The two pictures on the left are lighting up the water tower. And then the one on the right, they wanted to take a look at lighting up the legs on the water tower, which was a different fixture which we used for that. So just as an example. And here it is after installation. And here you really get a look at the power of color. The fixture to the left, when Prince passed away, the executive producer of Purple Rain called the studio and said, "Hey, can we do something to honor Prince and his creative work?" And they lit it up in purple for that occasion. Apologize for the quality of this picture. This is Paramount Studios, also their water tower. So this was a mock-up that we did. And then after installation. So again, just being able to put up any color on these very iconic locations. They can promote causes, they can promote, if a film has a particular color scheme, they can put that up there also. So they love the versatility of the lighting. University application, this is at UCLA here in Los Angeles, Royce Hall, one of the first buildings on campus. This was a mock-up that we did just to show them what was possible. A comment I wanted to make, it's very important for us that we have a reliable distributor on these projects for processing the orders and whatnot. And we do a lot of projects with All Phase Electric here in Burbank, so just wanted to thank them for their excellent service. Here is after installation, and again, UCLA uses this lighting quite often. They actually have some programs in where they have color movement. Their colors are blue and gold, and they have a show set up where the colors actually move back and forth on. It's very dramatic. Pictures. This was a challenge with a stage curtain, and we found a fixture from Fairlight that was able to punch light onto this very dark surface and actually still saturate with light. So that mock-up, and here's the full installation. So they were very pleased with the results. The Sixth Street Viaduct, which we talked about, sometimes physical mock-ups are not possible because the structures aren't built. That was the case of Street Viaduct. So in that case, you can use renderings to supplement and our client like, and so those are two rendering pictures you see. And then the picture on the right is the old Dick Street bridge. And there was a particular way that they wanted to light the bridge deck surface, one poles. So what they used was a grazed fixture to basically punch light across the surface. So here is pictures of Sixth Street Viaduct after the installation. You know, very dramatic effect, and Scott Cain worked on the programming on this one. Second Street Tunnel, we had limitations on doing a physical mock-up due to the fact of traffic control. So these are two renderings that were done for the city to show them what it was going to look like. And here is after installation. So those renderings, as you can see, were very accurate as far as how the lighting was going to look like when we were finished. Amazing project. Again, Scott Cain was a programmer. This is a project I'm currently working on, Coronado Bridge in San Diego. This is Spears and Major is the lighting designer, Bureau Happold Engineering, and also Peter Fink is the artist, and ProCal Lighting is the contractor. So this is an example of a large-scale mock-up, which are sometimes necessary on projects like this. So there's been two phases to that. There was an initial shootout, which you see on the left-hand picture, and then they did a mock-up on 3 of the tallest pillars over the bridge in 2020 to show what it was going to look like. An amazing project, and sometimes necessary on a project of scale to do this type of mock-up. Another current project I'm working on, the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library, lighting of Air Force One. They have existing 1,000-watt blue metal halides, which in California you can no longer purchase. So they wanted to look at options of lighting with LED. So we did a mock-up with the Reach Elite fixture, which we've discussed here. So one of the things we like to show on mock-ups is the light output of the LED versus the current lighting that they're using. So the picture on the right shows the 1,000-watt blue metal halide side by side with the 125-watt Reach Elite, and they were quite amazed that they could match the light output with significantly less wattage and then the option of color. Post-installation considerations. This is very important. I always have a discussion with my clients at the beginning of projects to ask them who will be the keeper of the colors. In other words, who is going to decide what colors go up on a structure? It really needs to be thought out beforehand because it will become an issue. And in the age that we live in, people have different reactions to different colors. So that really needs to be looked at from a local consideration. I'll give a couple of examples. At Warner Brothers, it ended up being the CEO of Warner Brothers. All color requests on the water tower had to be approved by him before it could go up. And then one of my university projects here, they actually had to form a committee to come up with policies regarding lighting going up on their buildings. So it's definitely something that needs to be looked at earlier rather than later in a project. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Scott Cain, and he is going to discuss the importance of having a elite programmer on these projects. Scott, take it away.
Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon on where you are. I'm just going to go over a quick intro and then we'll go over why 20 reasons why you should hire an elite programmer, when to hire them, and then for the programmers out there, I've got some stuff for you guys about some learning resources and what to take to a job site and that sort of thing. So this is the Willis Tower. This is a project that I assisted with the programming. I did the custom web interface for them. They had a difficult time seeing the building because it's so tall. We'd have to drive 1.5 miles away. So we had to come up with something creative and clever for them to be able to visualize what was on their building. So my name is Scott Cain. I just started my own company after having worked for various lighting and control manufacturers for the past 15 years. Creative control, light media. We're doing programming, lighting design, everything across the board from the light media spectrum. So, and this is another photo of the 2nd Street tunnel that Brian was talking about. So 20 reasons why you should hire an elite lighting programmer. And believe me, there are many more, but I had to keep it under 20 minutes. So the wow factor, Brian mentioned that also. There is no substitute for the wow factor, whether it's in a mock-up or whether it's once the installation is up and running and you've got, passersby or the building owner, whoever it is, elite programmers can definitely get you that wow factor. Reason number 2, they are controller agnostic. And that's very important. There's so many control systems out there now, and they're just more and more cropping up every day. Elite programmers stay on top of that stuff, and they are able to program in just about any control system out there. They are capable of integrating just about everything. With so many devices these days and so many different systems that need to talk to each other, from like BACnet to Modbus to whatever, you definitely need a programmer that knows how to speak to those controllers, that knows what hardware is involved, and knows how to use that hardware and that software. Super important. So they will know your hardware inside and out. So if you're a lighting manufacturer or lighting designer, I personally stay completely on top of all the new fixtures that are out there, all the new control systems. It's constantly changing because the technology is moving so fast. So it's important to stay up on those things. They are expert troubleshooters. Yeah, this one's big. Rarely does everything go according to plan. So being able to troubleshoot DMX, eDMX, that sort of thing. Elite programmers can definitely do that. Most of them have the gear to test and whatnot. It's very important. They have extensive knowledge of color theory. Now, a lot of you might be going, "Oh, color theory, who cares?" But it's very important. Getting your building and your fixtures to look good is half the battle. I mean, it's not just getting the right fixtures or getting the right control system. It's being able to put effects and colors together in a cohesive way that really make everything come together in the end. Reason 7, they work extremely well under pressure. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a job site and like the governor's coming at 7 a.m. and none of the lights work at 6:30. So you've got to have an elite programmer to really be able to get through those bumps in the road and make sure that everything goes off without a hitch. They can make your mock-up look amazing. This is important. This is without a good mock-up, you don't sell the project. So having an elite programmer to put together the right colors, the right effects, whatever it is that you're looking for, can definitely help push you over the edge. They can create a project-specific, unique lighting shows. This is also very important. There are a lot of lighting controllers out there that have a group of effects, and that's just what they have, and a lot of programmers just stick with those effects. But every once in a while, like with this U.S. Bank Tower, they wanted the crosstown rivals USC UCLA game to be very interactive with the building, and when one team would score, the other team's colors would circle the crown there, and then they would sort of stomp down the other team's colors. It was pretty clever, and it took quite a bit of programming to get that to happen, and they were able to do it remotely, so that worked out really well. They can create custom touch mobile desktop interfaces. This is becoming more and more of a thing. Everybody wants something sexy. They want something that looks good and functions really well. And depending upon the control system that you're using, you can use from Crestron to whoever else. There are tons of control systems out there that allow you to do custom interfaces. They have fairly extensive networking knowledge. This is also very important, especially because now lighting systems pretty much exist on networks. Whether it's a DMX 512 network or you're dealing with EDMX and running over regular network infrastructure, your elite programmer will know how to handle all that stuff. They can speak the language to the IT people that are involved, and they can definitely get ports open that need to be opened and that kind of thing. Definitely important. So they are problem anticipators as well as problem solvers. This problem anticipation thing, I can't tell you how important it is, because it's one of those things where you definitely want to head things off at the pass. And I'll get into this a little bit more later when we talk about when to involve your elite programmer. My philosophy is the sooner the better, just because we see things coming. We've been programming for eons, it seems like, and we run into sort of every problem, and every control system has its quirks, and being able to anticipate that stuff is very, very important. They're outside the box thinkers, definitely. From the type of lighting show that you're creating to the interface to even what fixtures to use. Sometimes it just depends on how to approach it. Like for instance, at the 6th Street Viaduct Bridge, they had issues where we had distance issues with using KaiNet and EDMX, and they weren't as familiar with this stuff as I am, and I said, let's just use KaiNet until we hit the distance limit, and then we'll just piggyback the DMX right out of the data enablers. So it worked out really well, and there was only two additional data enablers that had to run on DMX. But an elite programmer would know that. Regular programmers aren't going to know how to do that kind of stuff. They can write in several different code languages. This is important, but I wouldn't say it's as important as some of the other ones. Depending on your control system, it's Simple Sharp or Lua or whatever it is. It can definitely come in handy, especially when you're dealing with third-party integration. There are a lot of third-party devices out there where they have their own API, and being able to speak that language and be able to write code to interact with that API is very important. They work quickly and efficiently. And by efficiently too, a lot of us will do pre-programming before we even get to the job site. We've already laid out whatever it is. We've already patched whatever it is, and then when we get there and there's people there that we're programming for, it's just color and fun stuff. They don't have to sit there and wait and worry about is this going to work or whatever. The system's already working by the time whoever's coming, like a lighting designer or a building owner. So working quickly and efficiently is also very important. Most of them have relationships with lighting and control manufacturers. That's true for me. I know several other guys that also have those kinds of relationships, which sort of takes you into the second part. It allows them to get answers and additional support quickly. When you've got somebody's cell phone number, use it sparingly. But if you need help, you can always get the answer, rather quickly. Whereas an average programmer or somebody, like an electrical contractor that's maybe never programmed before, isn't going to know how to get those answers. They provide superior technical support and training. And I shouldn't say superior as much as I should say effective, in the sense that, we're closer to the project, we're aware of everything, we know how the system was laid out. So if there is any training that needs to be done, or any kind of troubleshooting or technical support post commissioning, we're definitely the most familiar with the project and can provide that support and training. Reason 19, they will give you peace of mind. I can't tell you how many times I've been working with people that I work with regularly, and they're like, this is why we hire you, because we don't have to worry about it. We know it's all going to work, and that's there's a lot to be said for that. And finally, reason number 20, they will save you money in the long run. And what I mean by that is, if you have to have service calls because the system isn't working the way it was, or the way it should have been, or they weren't trained as well as they should have been, and they've forgotten how to use the system, that sort of thing. It can cost the building owner or whoever it is quite a bit of money, having people come out and redo things and reprogram stuff and retrain. So in the long run, it's going to save you quite a bit of money. Plus, they can also help with some of that problem anticipation. Hey, maybe you should use this device instead of that device. This one has problems in this sort of scenario, that sort of thing. So all of that's very important and very good reasons to hire an elite lighting programmer. There, like I said, there are more, but that's pretty good for this venue. So timing. There's a bunch of schools of thought about this. I am of the school of thought that the sooner you get your programmer involved, the better off you're going to be. I've done everything from CAD drawings and risers and stuff like that, architectural visualization, renderings, lighting calculations. It just depends on what the end user or the building owner needs. And having your programmer involved at an early stage, not only does it get them more familiar with the project, so by the time they do get there, they have, they're already intimately familiar with how it's laid out, where all the control points are, where the power supplies are, and that sort of thing. And it comes in real handy. So from my perspective, I always want to be involved at the very beginning if I can be. And oftentimes I am. And there are times where I'm not, but it definitely makes it a little more interesting. But I have definitely been able to save people money. Maybe they had a fixture that was specified or whatever that I know in that particular scenario isn't going to be as good, and the manufacturer makes a similar fixture that in their own line that will work better. Like for instance, like a blast versus a braze or something like that. It's definitely helpful. And plus, when they can do architectural visualization renderings, they can help the client visualize the difference and that sort of thing. So the sooner the better on timing. So now, for all you programmers out there, if you want to be an elite programmer, not only do you have to do all the things that we just discussed, I highly recommend learning several different code languages, being able to create custom interfaces, that sort of thing. But being prepared on a job site is absolutely the most important thing. And there are some things you need to take with you to be prepared for just about any scenario. So I'm going to go over those. Obviously, you need PPE. So if you don't have a hard hat, steel-toed shoes, glasses, safety vests, gloves, you won't even be allowed on a lot of job sites, depending on what stage they're in. Now, oftentimes, when the programmer gets there, everything's already done. OSHA's gone. There's no need for any of this stuff. But more often than not, you're on a job site and the building's not finished. So always have your PPE with you. I always take a DMX tester. This is a Swiss-in tester. There's DMX Cat. There's a couple other ones. Several lighting control systems use memory cards. So take a multi-card reader that takes compact flash, SD, micro SD, whatever it is. Make sure that you can read those in case you have to reformat or whatever it is that you might need to do with it. additional SD cards, additional compact flash cards, additional micro SD cards. Those things come in real handy. You don't want to have to leave a job site and go find a Best Buy in the middle of nowhere somewhere. I always take a PoE switch. A lot of devices out there are PoE powered, or at least it's an option. It just makes it a lot easier. I also take a pocket Wi-Fi router. It makes testing and being able to control things from your phone, especially during mockups. People love that. If you hand them your phone or you tell them, hey, just type in this IP address or whatever it is, and they can control something from their phone, they're sold 9 times out of 10. Especially if it's a CEO or a building owner, they're all, or a mayor, they love that stuff. Continuity testing. This is we're getting a little bit into the network side of things, but it's definitely worth talking about because oftentimes when you're troubleshooting, it has to do with bad wiring or just not an efficiently punched down Cat5 cable or Cat6 cable. So I also take a Cat5 crimp tool just in case I've got to crimp my own Cat5 or Cat6. Always take at least 100 feet, preferably 300 feet of Cat5 cable with you. You can buy them in 100-foot sections, and then you can get Ethernet couplers to put them together. Multimeter, super important. I can't tell you how many times I've had to test a DMX line to find out if there was any activity or whatever, and or just test something for power or whatever it is. Super handy, really important to have. Same with the precision toolkit. Sometimes you got to open stuff up. You got to unscrew things or whatever it is that you got to do to get to where you need to be. And without tools, you're dead in the water. Smart Jack Pro, obviously, if you're dealing with DMX 512, along with the 5-pin to RJ45 connector, worth its weight in gold. Wire cutters. My wire cutters are also power snippers. So if I'm going to cut something, it will beep at me if it's got, if it's hot power or whatever, which can come in handy. Imperial and metric hex keys, also important. You never know, the manufacturer may be, European, they may be domestic. So it helps to have both imperial and metric hex keys. Wagos, love these things. I don't know if you guys use them, but it's like a wire nut that's super sophisticated. You just like snap those little orange things up and down, put your wires in. Believe it or not, you'd be surprised how many times you're going to have to wire something in or just to test something. Sometimes you got to just, disconnect something and wire your own tester in and whatever. Not as often anymore, but this DMX to dip app or some app like it that allows you to type in a DMX address and get your dip switch configuration. Also worth its weight in gold. I haven't used one in a while, but there are definitely still tons of power supplies and devices out there that are addressable via DMX dip switches. Finally, this is more of the optional stuff. So whenever I'm programming, especially large installations, there are a few things you want to have with you. This is a Ubiquiti bullet. You connect the antenna to it, and then you put it on a light stand or whatever, and you connect it to the network that you're on, and you'll get 1.5 mile Wi-Fi range with this omnidirectional antenna. So, for instance, when I was programming the loop at LAX, I was able to just pop this thing on the roof of one of the parking garages, and then literally be around the entire 1.5 mile loop of LAX wirelessly, and it was so much better than trying to deal with finding a network switch to plug into every time. Radios oftentimes will be provided by the building, depending upon the building, and drop cams. Sometimes you don't have eyes; you're in a basement somewhere, and you need to see the installation. Drop cams can be real handy. I wouldn't put them just anywhere, like I wouldn't do it in like LA City Hall or something like that, because they will not be there very long. But it's things like this that sort of take you to the next level and allow you to see, instead of being on the phone going, is it red? Is it red? Is it red? You can just see it. So here's some learning resources for you guys. If you want to, they're videos. I think they give you this presentation afterwards, or you can go download it or whatever. But learn Lua in one video, 30 days to learn jQuery. If you want to do any kind of like HTML interface, you're going to need to know jQuery. You're going to need to know HTML and CSS. If you're doing any kind of like, Crestron programming or any kind of other programming, even custom programming using, a DMX playback engine that you write yourself, you're going to need to know C#. You should probably know Python. You can learn all of this stuff online. And then color theory, like I said, it's super important. And there's a cool little tool at the bottom there, the Palatine Colorizer, which is sort of my secret weapon when it comes to selecting colors that go well with each other. So that's it. Why you should hire an elite programmer and what you should bring to the job site if you're going to be one, so you can be prepared. Thanks, guys.